David Gray has gone through the classic roller coaster of emotions over the 7 months of his dream job as Hibs manager. The ultimate high of being appointed, the real low of a dreadful run of results which put his future in the hot seat into question. But then coming through that for the high again of being December Manager of the Month, which was real credit to his resilience as a rookie manager. I'm Derek McGregor, this is One on One, and David opens up on his remarkable opening period as a manager and at the club where he is an absolute legend. But David also opens up on a playing career that isn't exactly short of interest either, including one of the most iconic goals in Scottish football history. David, I always like coming out here, that you always get a sense of you're away from the hustle and bustle. Do you like that as well?
I do. I think a lot of people don't realise how far round the other side of Edinburgh it is. You know, people think it's just into Edinburgh. If you get to the M8, get off the M8 onto the bypass, but it is completely round the other side of the city. It's great how peaceful it is because it's a really good space we've got here. The training ground, you know, there's 4 big pitches here, a small pitch on the end, fantastic facility. When it's calm like this, the flip side to that is when it's really windy. It's definitely not as ideal on that front, but in terms of the facility we've got, it's fantastic. When
you've got new signings coming in, particularly from abroad, do they just think Tranent is within Edinburgh? And then they're shocked when it's further out and it's out in the countryside?
Possibly. To be fair, I think I kind of use that as a bit of a coup as well. You know, the city itself sells itself. Edinburgh's a wonderful city, and I think growing up there, I definitely took it for granted, moved away, and then by the time I came back up, you really appreciate it. And then when players come maybe from down south or from abroad, you know, the city sells itself. The stadium sells itself now with how good that is. And the training ground itself, when you're actually here, is really good. But also, if you think about Edinburgh as a city, for a player coming up, if you want to live right in the city centre, in the hustle and bustle, you can, but you're only 15 minutes to the training ground. If you want to be out in the sticks out here, you're 15 minutes for the beach, but still only 15, 20 minutes for Edinburgh. So you've actually got a bit of everything. Within a half an hour journey, you can have whatever sort of wherever you want to live, whatever sort of lifestyle you want to have, whether you've got family and you want to be inside it or you want to be out. One thing you don't tell them is what the weather's like, because that's something that on a good day, on a good day, you take them to Edinburgh on a good day, or you bring them up here on a good day, and it's like, wow, what a facility, everything else is great. Bring them here in February, March when it's windy as in and blowing, snow everywhere. It's obviously not ideal, but at the same time, obviously we live in Scotland and that's part of it.
What time are you in here in the morning? Average morning?
Average morning. Well, I live in Bathgate, so coming from Bathgate, I need to beat the traffic anyway, because I think the whole of Livingston basically leave their house at 7 in the morning.
So you're in here at 5 then, eh?
So I need to get past Livingston by 7 to make sure I'm in. So I'm usually in about, I don't know, quarter past 7, half past 7 every morning, and then I'm usually here till at least after 5 o'clock, let the traffic going the other way, or else you just sit on that bypass all the time anyway. And obviously there's loads of things you can do. The other side to that is when I do get home, you know, I've got 3 young kids and my wife, so it's not always the case. Usually I go home and I'll still get the laptop out at times, and that's what definitely life balance has changed on that front to this side now, but it's definitely something that I try to be conscious of, and I try and get my work done here before I go back.
It's a common denominator with all the managers, David, I've spoken to in one-on-one. I mean, no matter what level, they're all dedicated and they're full on with it, and you know, the hours are what they need to be for them. So what time would you be getting home at an average kind of evening? You know?
It really depends. I think anything between 5 and 7, really. I think that's probably it. I think, but as I say, a lot of that can be spent because you're sitting. If I was to leave early, say everything was done and chance to get away from work a wee bit earlier, maybe 3 o'clock, you'd get home. I could sit in the bypass for 2 hours. So I'd rather be here doing the things I need to do and knowing I was doing it, so that when I do get home, everything's kind of done and I can try and, as much as possible, try and switch off, which doesn't happen very often. But at least then, when I go home, I've got the kids there and they quickly snap you back into dad mode. So
I was going to ask, and particularly the rough period that you came through, how difficult is it when you're approaching the front door, you've parked the car, you're approaching the front door of the house, how difficult was it to park everything that's gone previous professionally? You know, it could have been a heavy defeat, you could be emotional, clearly there was a lot of pressure on you. Was it possible for you to walk in that front door and then that's it?
I think what you just said, that all of the above was definitely there, and I felt it massively. Even things like I might be on the phone when I arrive in the driveway and I'm still sitting in the car on the phone effectively, and I know the kids are sitting waiting on me. So then I think that's a challenge. I know my wife is conscious of that as well. She'll always say, come on, you need to make sure you spend time with the kids, because that is why I do it.
Would you often look out the window and see you sat in the car still on the phone?
I probably shouting, banging on the window. Any chance you coming in and dealing with these three? I've had them all day.
You think you've got it hard?
Exactly. No, to be honest, that's something I've been very, very lucky with. The child support we've got. So my wife, she's a self-employed hairdresser, so she can be quite flexible in terms of however she works, but she still works really hard.
Fringe benefits?
Aye, exactly.
That one.
You had to get that one in, didn't you? Got a haircut from my wife since I was 21. No, even that's even earlier than that, to be honest.
You did a fair before you became a manager. So I've been torn out?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That one comes up quite a lot. Just as well he's not got hair, he'd have pulled it out by now. I can't remember, I think I've lost my fringe.
You've heard that about 1,000 times, aye.
Aye, lost the fringe at about 17, I think, to be honest.
Is there times, have you had moments you've gone in the front door and you've been in a mood and the kids are waiting there, you know, such anticipation to see their dad coming home and you're uptight and you've thought, oh no?
No, I think you have to be conscious of the fact that, especially my youngest, because my youngest doesn't really, she does understand it now because she's getting a little bit older, but she definitely, it's just dad when you come in, so she'll quickly put you back and bring you back down to earth. Whereas my son will probably ask me questions about what you've done in training and everything else because he loves his football, he's FIFA daft, he's got all the cards, he loves going to the games now. He'll constantly ask me about players and all that stuff, which is brilliant. And then my oldest, she plays football as well. I wouldn't say she's as invested as my son at the moment, just in terms of what I'm doing, but probably just because him and his wee mates and all the people in the street that come round and want to play football and all the stuff that comes with that. So,
can I quickly get a sense, David, that you're under more scrutiny from your kids than as much as anyone else? Particularly your boy, maybe, because he knows it all, he knows the players. Why are you picking him? Why are you leaving him out?
I don't know if it's quite as bad as that, but he definitely, he'll always say, like, he'll always ask about the players, when's he back, what happened today, what did you do in training? He always just asks these things, which is good, but it's something that obviously he's really interested in and invested in. And it's not that I've actually pushed towards him either, because he probably had a wee spell when he was about 5 or 6 where he was playing football with his mates just now and again out the back garden or whatever, and playing locally on a Monday night, but never really that invested. He wasn't. He played a bit of golf actually. He was probably more invested in his golf. His granddad used to take him to the golf, which he loved. But in the last definitely the last year, especially now, doing what I'm doing now, that he's heavily invested in really part of what he's doing, and it's great because he'll be going up to Ross County the weekend at 100%. Doesn't miss the games and that he loves it. He got a drum for his Christmas. He wants to be part of all that. So
he wants to be part of the ultra group.
I don't know about that. I'm not quite sure he goes as far as that yet. No, but he's got a wee drum that he likes to bang his drum and all that stuff. So no, it's brilliant. They're so invested. Because at the end of the day, they live it every single day, don't they? And whether I win, lose or draw, I need to be dad, and that's all I want with them really, which is the most important thing.
Of your 3 kids, your 2 oldest ones, have they been particularly aware of the pressure that's been on you? How social media, are they too young for that yet?
My oldest daughter, she's at school obviously. I think she definitely will live at school. She's primary 7, so 100%. We've obviously grown up where we are, predominantly Rangers and Celtic, that area. But there is definitely Hearts and Hibs supporters at our school as well that I'll constantly talk about. And then when you're obviously struggling down the bottom of the league, when we were and how the adversity we went through early doors, she would never come out and tell me, but I knew she would be getting that. Definitely, it's all part of it. But she's certainly a lot happier now. And social media, not so much. I don't think it's something I'm trying, I wouldn't say completely avoid, but she's very guarded on that front anyway because she's still quite young. She's only 11, so I try and manage that as much as we can.
Does your wife like football?
She does, actually.
Has she grown to like it, or does she like it anyway?
I think she was always, well, I wouldn't say she was interested in it. As I say, she's always been a hairdresser. She left school early to go into hairdressing. It's actually how I met her, because my best mate growing up went into hairdressing, and then the two of them worked in the same salon in Edinburgh, which is why, so I obviously grew up in Edinburgh, she grew up in Bathgate, and then the two of them were bestie pals at work. And then as a result of that, when I came back up from Manchester one weekend, went out with my mate and bumped into Hayley, my wife, and that's ever since then not ever since then, I was doing a bit of chasing to be fair for a while, but bit of chasing went on for a while, and then eventually, and then the rest is history. I've been with her for a long time now. And I gave you the number there, but I can't remember, so I'll get stuck for it.
I think there's a lot of people in the game, David, that are delighted for you that things are more positive. I think delighted for you because I think they've been, impressed with how you've conducted yourself. Your first job, immense pressure, and publicly when we see you, you've maintained a consistent message. You don't get a sense of somebody whose temperament is up and down. That's impressive. But, you know, as a manager at any club, but a club like Hibs, you've kept it together.
Well,
how have you managed that?
Well, I appreciate you the praise there. I think it is honestly about being as consistent as possible. I think that's something I've tried to do, is be as consistent as I can in what I truly believe in. And I think that isn't just tactically on the grass. I think it's also in terms of organisation and the standards are set every single day in training. And I think getting the staff to buy into that as much as we can, and also the players believing in what we're going to do and giving them the trust and belief that we will turn it around. I've seen enough of that every single day. That's probably what kept me going as well, with the togetherness we've created in the training ground, that during adversity we knew we weren't that far away. There was areas within it where we're letting ourselves down. I've spoke a lot about the individual errors and decision making in games that really punished us at the start of the season, but the performance level was never too far away. There was only a few times we probably let ourselves down, whereas if you can get the players to believe and stick to why I think it would change, and I think that was something I had to try and demonstrate, that this is why I believe it will change, and we all took part in that, then given the time I knew we would turn it around. And I'm delighted that we've obviously got the time. I'm delighted that we've moved forward and the confidence has turned and we're starting to get the rewards of it now.
I remember the St Mirren game in Paisley, which I'm sure seems a long time ago now for you, but it was a bad result, it was a bad performance, and you came in, you spoke strongly, but you didn't throw players under the bus. You measured it. What you said, you could tell you were unhappy. And I came away from that thinking, that's quite impressive, because who your status is at Hibs and what it means to you, you could have just been knee-jerk, but you kept it measured.
I think, especially straight after the game, obviously emotions are high.
Yeah.
The players are always going to listen to what you say, and the feedback then you want to give to the players. I would very rarely, I'm not going to come out and say anything in front, especially straight after a game, that I haven't already said to the players. And I think that consistency needs to be there with that. But I also think that, right after the game, when emotion is so high, it's very easy to get caught up in the result, and that takes over straight away and you get that. But I also always felt that whether we won, lost or draw, or however we played, it might not be directly my fault, it might have been a decision within the game, but it was 100% always my responsibility. And I never wanted to come out and say, or hold an excuse. Like, very rarely do I come out and talk about refereeing decisions, or because we can always do better within moments in the game as well. So I don't like giving players outs either. So I don't like having that side to it. It's all about, the biggest word I use all the time with the players is accountability. That's everything we do. And I obviously carry the can for it at the top end.
Would a lot of that come from your own playing career, David, where you've been part of a dressing room where things maybe haven't been going well, and certain managers, you've then seen them go public, throw you under the bus. You've thought, if I'm ever in his position, I'm not doing that, because I can see the reaction it causes. Was that part of it, your thinking when you became a manager? I'm not going to do this, that and the other. I've seen other managers do.
No, I think, listen, there's no right or wrong way to do it either. It's just everyone has their own beliefs and how they think it should be done.
Just be honest to yourself.
Aye, be honest and true to myself. I think that's probably the big thing. So I can, whatever I say after the game, can I go then in on training ground on Monday morning and stand in front of the players and say, here's why I said it and this is what I believe in. And I think, by and large, I think we've got that quite right. There'll all be times straight after the game when you say things in behind closed doors where you'll say, maybe I got that right, maybe I didn't. And then when you reflect and watch the games back, I think I've quite quickly realised that it's never as good as you think it is when things go well, and it's never as bad from a coaching point of view when you strip it back. There's always moments within games or an individual that does things. But at the same time, the player never makes a mistake on purpose. It's always a genuine mistake, 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 even. So it's about making sure that we fix the problem, we don't shy away from it, but also giving them the belief to know that I still have all the faith in the world in them that they can get back out there and fix it. I think that's the key.
Be honest, was there moments when you were on your own you thought, am I cut out for this? Is this for me? Am I good enough for this?
I don't think I've doubted myself. I'm not going to stand here and say it's been easy at all. Definitely early on in it, you start to real adversity and going through it all. I was constantly speaking to the staff. Am I missing something here? How else can we improve? Probably always knowing that, as I've already said, the feeling I was getting on the training pitch and the reaction I was getting at the players all the time, and then togetherness, it was constantly there, definitely kept me going. And then when I then start diving into about data and stats and everything else that comes with it, to how close we were, or even just the probability of it changing, the amount of points we lost from winning positions was a huge factor early on in the season. But the probability of that happening all the time, or us getting through the moments and dealing with adversity, if you believe it's going to turn, it will turn. And I think we're demonstrating that recently just now. I think back to the 3-3 against Rangers. In the very last minute of the game, Hibernian runs through and hits the post. from that moment in the game, earlier on in the season, maybe we'd have went in and maybe never got away with it. So on that one occasion, we got that little bit of luck, which is a big part of it as well. You need, in this league especially, you need to carry a little bit of that. You need it to go the right way for you. And I think, all in all, as long as, like I've just said at the start, as long as you stick to what I believe in, and I'm consistent with that, whether that be tactically, but organisation and just standard setting every single day.
I think there was always big respect for you as a player, David, and then of course you become the manager. And you'll understand people going, right, okay, let's see, can he hack it as a manager? And obviously the Celtic Hearts defeat, we think, oh right, okay, that's a question mark. And then I think there was something like 8 defeats, including 4-1 at Dundee, and everyone was thinking, he's gone. Did you, if the board had decided to jettison you at that point, could you have complained?
No, definitely not. I think purely based on results at the football club, for us finding ourselves in the position we were, and the return in points we had up for the amount of games we had wasn't good enough for the football club. And as I've already said, sometimes it's not directly my fault for something that's happened, but it was 100% my responsibility. So I knew it was, if I don't, and I knew that every manager knows that when they sign up to the job, they know that if you don't win games, you lose your job, and it's like the volatile nature of it. That is always the case. The one thing that always goes on in the background that the outside noise don't see or hear is there was constant communication with the club. So I was constantly demonstrating why I believe it was going to turn, and the support I was getting from above, and the support we were having every single day, and also what we were doing internally. I honestly believed it would turn. Now, the key moment then obviously is when you think back to that Dundee game, and people talk about us completely capitulating in the game and getting beat 4-1. The first 15 minutes of the game we were brilliant. Started the game unbelievably well, went 1-0 up, and then a poor decision from a very experienced player, went down to 10 men, and off the back of that, ended up losing the game 4-1. But even the fourth goal to make it 4-1, we were well in the game in the second half. We were well, we just needed to try and get back into it, find that extra goal, and then we lose one right at the very end. And then when you look at it again, it's like, well, they've lost 4-1. I understand why everybody would ask me the questions they would ask me at that point, because where we were was nowhere near good enough.
See, when you were sat in the dugout at full time, or you would have been stood in the touchline, beg your pardon, but see when you're making that walk at full time, is that the lowest point so far at that you're thinking, right, there could be a call in the morning? Can you give us an idea of the psychology for a manager at that point?
I don't think, not right then, because you're still in the heat of the battle, so I don't think, probably try to calm down a wee bit, because again, you still need to go then and address the players.
Compose yourself.
Compose yourself, take a minute, calm down, think about what you're going to say, because you really need to be clear on your message you're going to deliver at that point, because you can't take that back once you've said what you've said in that dressing room, especially at that moment, especially during adversity, when it is, it's very difficult to not let emotions get high at that point. We know him, the players also know, plus they've just been beat 4-1, so they're on the floor. But we had a game 3 or 4 days later against Aberdeen where you need to pick them back up again. So at that moment, I'd never ever thought to myself here, this could be the end, so it doesn't matter what I say here. Not at all, didn't enter my mind at all. I'm not going to lie, I'd be sitting probably on the bus thinking about the game, or on the way home for the game, or definitely sleeping that night thinking here, like how big the Aberdeen game then became. That was 100% the biggest game in my management career so far, purely because of the run we'd had up to that. And then as the game turned out, a minute away from losing the game again, but then getting a point at the end, and then the turning point in the season at that point.
I thought that whole game kind of encapsulates management in a way. There's so you can get all your badges, you can get your pro licences and everything, but what you can't legislate for is what happened in that game, and that can turn a career, it can flip it.
Aye, 100%.
So you went from 4-1 Dundee to you're losing, I think, to Aberdeen. That could have been pivotal for you, but the manner of the comeback, the spirit the team showed, such a dramatic ending. Suddenly the whole kind of mood. Mm-hmm. You weren't out the woods, obviously, but
no.
I thought, oh, hang on a minute, they're playing for him here.
100%, but I think that was what my message was probably straight after the Dundee game. We never started the game as if a team that, and I've never felt it this season ever, during all the difficult games and poor results, that the players weren't running for me. The players weren't trying to do their best.
You never thought you'd lost the
Never ever. And it's easy for me to say that now, looking back, but even as my staff, we talk about it all the time. I've talked about the togetherness and the culture here, and I've never ever felt that. That's one thing that genuinely gave me the belief that this will turn. It has to turn if we keep doing the right things and keep putting ourselves in their positions. But we also needed to improve. So we also needed to cut out the mistakes and learn from the mistakes, and then put it all complete performances in, which we've started to do. So that was definitely the big thing in the game. And then when the Aberdeen game, I think we went 1-0 down and ended up finding ourselves getting back to 2-2, thinking we're going to go and kick on here, peg back to 3-2 again, and you're going, well, that was obviously a huge moment in the game. But the amount of times this season where we were in front, and then got pegged back and got a point out of the game. It felt like a defeat, especially when you're on that run. It felt like a defeat a lot of the time to the players. So to pick them up all the time, to try and keep them going. The Aberdeen game was the complete opposite. We only got a point, the same as we only got a point against Dundee United a few weeks before. But the reverse of that was, it felt like so much more than that to the players. The challenge then was, could you then go back up away to Motherwell the next game? There was no point in doing that and then letting ourselves down against Motherwell, because then it just became, well, we're back to the same old situation. And at that point, we were genuinely running out of games. So if you then look at where we need to be as a football club, the top 6, at that point in the season, for the points return we had, it would then take an unbelievable run to be able to get there. So it then starts to become, is that even achievable in this league? We've already seen it, how difficult it is. So we knew we were starting to, I knew, I never ever tell the players this, but you're running out of games in terms of how quickly we can turn this around. You can't just say, oh, it'll turn. There has to come a point where, like you've just asked me the question a minute ago, at what point do we keep sticking with this from a football club point of view? And obviously I'm grateful for the support I've had along the way, and thankfully that was the turning point in the season, and we've really kicked on for there.
I think that's credit to the owners, because it could have been so easy just to, he's gone, there's a P45. But there was almost like they kept their composure as well, they kept their nerve, and they're now getting a kind of reward for it, so to speak. You were talking about constant communication with the top. Was there one particular individual, David, that you would be?
I think everyone together.
Was it Malky? Was it?
And Ben as well. All of us together, yeah.
Course,
So you've got Malky, Ben, Ian. We were constantly in communication with it all the time. You know, Malky, having been a manager very recently as well, knows exactly what it's like to stand exactly where I'm standing. So that's a massive benefit to me, especially right after games. You know, he knows when to talk, when to ask me things, when not to. And then I think I'll always then naturally, once you've watched the game back and you have a little think about what happened in the game, where did we go for there, then bounce things off him again. This is why I made that decision. You know, maybe that wasn't right, maybe this was right. And I'm always, because you've never ever completed it, you're always trying to improve all the time. And that's something I've tried to do throughout it as well.
Were you constantly getting a reassurance in the sense that they knew what you were doing behind the scenes, they knew what you were trying to put in place, so that in their minds that was a reassurance that, okay, the results were poor, but they could see where you were wanting to go with it, so we're going to back you for that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was probably able to demonstrate as well why I believed it would change. I think that was the big thing. Like, not just, I think if anybody coming into the building, you know, I've obviously been in this club for a long time, and I've been through, unfortunately, too many managers from a coaching point of view as well. So selfishly for David Gray, that was, on reflection, quite a positive thing, because I learnt so much in such a short period of time. You talked about things you learn on your coaching courses and badges and things like that. I learnt so much in such a short period of time that you could never get on a coaching course.
Well, I mean, you had 4 stints as caretaker. I mean, there's not going to be too many managers that have had 4 interim periods.
Within 3 years, yeah.
And you had a cup final as well. I mean, you were straight into a cup final.
Yeah, 100%. So that was
incredible experience for you.
That was, again, like you talk about things you learn on a coaching course. So I'd only literally been coaching 3 months. And even in that sense, the opportunity that Jack Ross presented to me to become his first team coach was a brilliant one for me, purely because I loved the way Jack worked. I'd obviously been his captain, a player, taking part in training, but also it gave me like a soft introduction to becoming a first team coach, rather than, it wasn't as if, right, I'm now a coach, go and take training, Dave. So Jack was very much like structured in what he wanted to do every single day. So I was able to learn off him, but also deliver sessions that I knew already worked because I'd done them as a player. I knew the sizes and didn't have to work on that. He would say, right, just go and deliver that for me. And it just gave me a little bit of a soft introduction to taking training and, you know, learning that and getting time on the grass, and that was the big thing. So I was able to have a good introduction to it. But then within 2-3 months into that, they removed Jack, and then we got a cup final 3, 4, 5 days later, or whatever it was. Exactly, in the cup final against obviously a very, very good Celtic team at the time. So that was certainly different. But then on reflection, when I think back through all of this, people talk about experience and a rookie manager and all the things that come with that. The amount of experience I gained in such a short period of time, managers could have 5, 6, 7,000 games and never get the opportunity that I've had in such a short period of time. So there's even, you know, after Lee Johnson was removed, I then had the opportunity to take the team against Aston Villa in the Europa Conference League, and you're standing beside Unai Emery, which is another challenge. It wasn't ideal. We were 5-0 down right enough at the time, so that wasn't it. But again, on reflection, these are all experiences and things that especially as a young manager, you can only dream about getting at such an early age, but some managers could go through their whole career and never get that
To be
opportunity.
fair, Villa was sensational. I did that game, they were sensational, Villa. But did you even get a chance to get a word with Unai Emery?
Not really.
No.
Just
You
in
like
the
the
passing and a
business
little bit. Yeah, that'd have been great, aye. But obviously you're constantly challenging yourself. Actually, when I think back to how that week actually went, we had Aberdeen on the Saturday away from home, and we had obviously it was on the Sunday and the Thursday night game away at Villa Park. And I worked back the way, so I picked my team for Aberdeen because we were 5-0 down against Villa. But it was a fine balance because boys had the opportunity to go and play at Villa Park. And I wasn't going to rest players at Villa Park and say, oh, by the way, you're not going to play at Villa Park because you've worked so hard to get to that point. So trying to find that balance. So I basically picked my team for Aberdeen and almost worked back the way and trying to get through that. And then it worked out really well because we went up to Aberdeen and won 2-0. So
You've been 7 months permanent manager. How far do you think you've come from when you were appointed to now? You're only 36. I think you just turned 36 when you get the job. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of ways, you feel you've aged in the job.
Certainly aged, looking wise anyway.
No, not for me to say.
Because the hairline can't move, that's why it's stuck where it is. No, I think if you think back to what I've again experienced in such a short period of time as the manager or as the head coach, would I've liked it to have been a lot more plain sailing, yes. But on reflection, coming out the other end of it now, by no means completed it. So that's one thing I would always say. I'm always constantly guarding against complacency because we've demonstrated how quickly we've changed it in a positive way. But this league demonstrates that every time, that you can go through peaks and troughs, and how it goes, we will deal with adversity again. So I'd like to think that having gained the experience I've had in such a short period of time already this season, so early in my career, that'll be a better place for it. So on reflection, I'll definitely, especially when I get to hopefully the end of the season and we look back, I'm sure it'll be a massive benefit to me and my career moving forward.
It'd been understandable, David, that when the results start picking up, your emotions, you get more relaxed and it's like, that's proved you wrong, but if anything, you're even more kind of cautious.
100%, aye.
Because it can just so easily change again, can't it?
Yeah, I think the key to that is you don't, as I say, it's about being consistent. So as I said to you earlier, it's never been too high or been too low. Like the highs when it's good and the low when it's bad, because there will come a time it has to go either way. And I think the minute you give the players an out, or you take your foot off the gas, or you change the way you see things, or don't prepare the same way, then you leave yourself exposed to something going wrong or it not quite going the way it was. And I think complacency can then come in, and you want to guard against it as much as you can, especially when you play at this league, because of, like you see it this season, it's so tight and everybody can beat everyone. So we need to be at our best all the time.
You get manager of the month for December. That must have been a great moment for you. Your first one as a manager, considering everything you'd come through, to then get to that stage where you've, it hadn't been long before that you could have been sacked, but there you are with the manager of the month, and deservedly so with the results. That must have been a real good moment for you.
It was. I thought it was a massive moment, not just for me, it's for everyone involved. So like, as much as I'll be the one that will stand in front of the cameras and it'll be me that gets, I've got staff at the football club that, I've brought to the club to support me, but also to try and make us better. And then the wider staff that are 100% behind what we're doing every single day. And it's the players that take deserve all the praise for that, for sticking to what we were doing during the difficult times. Because if it's not for the players, or you start to lose players within that process, we don't turn it around. And I do lose my job, and that then moves on. And that's just football, of course it is. But it was very much a collective for what we achieved in that month, especially, was all the rewards and hard work sticking together during the difficult times, and I honestly believe it.
And particularly you've got Liam Craig and Craig Sampson. Did you feel your decisions with your backroom staff would be as important as any player you're bringing in?
Definitely. And you've got Eddie obviously as well. So all of them have had either worked at the club or at least played for the club.
Eddie's been here about 50 years, hasn't he?
He's been here longer than me, a lot longer than me. So Eddie, they all have different qualities and different reasons why I wanted to work with them and bring them in for me. Firstly, I trust them implicitly, which is a big thing. Obviously, when I first joined the club, Liam Craig was the captain. He was my captain when I played, and then obviously moved on. So I took the captaincy over after him leaving. But he was always someone then that he fully understood the club. He's been through difficult times at the football club as well. But he's also achieved a lot in the game. I fully understands Scottish football. His knowledge in the Scottish game is incredible. He's done a lot of stuff with St Johnstone in terms of the youth, and was well across all that as well. And so from that point of view, he was great from that. I worked with Sammy he was my goalie coach under Jack, so he worked with Jack, closely with Jack, and I knew how, not just on the grass, what Sammy can bring, but Sammy's also culturally off the pitch and in the building every single day, whether we win, lose or draw, Sammy's the same. And he's loud and he's can be annoying to some people, but for me, if he wasn't that way, I would have a problem. I would say, like, what's up? Like, why is he? He's not. Well, to be fair, I've never had to have that conversation with Sammy because he knows that's part of his role as well. That he's very much part of that. And then Eddie's obviously someone who has seen it all. He's been at the club a really long time. He's worked in different areas within the club. He's played for the club.
He's a proper stalwart, isn't he?
Exactly, and his knowledge and experience. But he also not a screaming and shouter. So it's very much a calming influence, eyes and ears. Speaks very wisely. It was a massive help to me as well during the whole, all my interim periods. He was always the one that I asked to come and help me out on the grass and help me in the stands and look at a game, because you can get caught up in what's going on in the game, but I think as a coaching staff you try to break it down a little bit, and maybe Eddie would concentrate on certain areas within the game, and I think that really helps.
I suppose you had 4 interim periods to decide if you really wanted to be a permanent manager, and clearly you did. When the board came to you, was there any concern that you could possibly tarnish your legacy as a player? Did that ever come to mind?
Nah, definitely not. I think when I think back, when I go through my whole sort of decision making to retire even early. So when I retired early, I still had a year on my playing, maybe even 2 years on my playing career, a year on my playing career. Now clearly when Jack offered me the job to be first team coach, I wasn't going to play because he's not going to be first team coach and play. So if I wanted to prolong my career, which everybody tells you to do, play for as long as you can. You're a long time retired. So you'll regret it when you don't play. And it was a big decision for me then to think, right, I can still fit enough to play, whether I was good enough. I know everybody can answer that, but still fit enough to play, but deciding to retire early to take up the role into coaching. But I also knew that's what I wanted to do after football, and I also thought it's a great opportunity to work with someone that I really enjoyed working with, and as I've already touched on, the introduction to coaching made my mind up quite quickly that it was a leg up for the next 20, 30 years of potential earnings and what I wanted to do in this next stage of my career. But also the opportunity working at this level. I might never get that opportunity again. Once you leave the club, do you ever get back? And certainly we'd have to do a lot of different things to maybe get into this position again. And then on the flip side to that, when I think back to all the managers that I've been fortunate enough to work under, like I've already touched on, yes, it's been too much of a turnover of managers during my coaching career, but I've learned so much from different managers, and I fully understand why every manager was brought in and why they were appointed, because of the qualities they've got. And not just the qualities they've got, the qualities that their staff brought with them. So you've always got, like down at Sean Maloney after that. So Sean then brought Gary Caldwell, obviously knowledge in Scotland. But I learned so much from Sean from a tactical point of view. How he's seen the game was so different to maybe what I'd done before, and even just how he was on the grass. So it was a completely different way of working. As I've already said, with Jack led on a lot of the training, and it was the way he wanted it to be. Very, very organised, very good on the grass. And I learnt a lot of that from him. And again, Sean brought a completely different way of working, which was great. And then it was Lee Johnson after that. And then so Lee was a very, very experienced manager, over 500 games as a manager, and the staff he brought in with him as well. Jamie McAllister actually played with him a brief spell when we were at Preston together. But he, like the knowledge what he brought without the ball and things I learnt from him, the stuff that I still use to this day. I think you're constantly taking little bits of everybody, piecing it together to what I believe a successful Hibs team should look like. But I've had the benefits of maybe learning why things didn't quite go right, why did that happen, and I think that's probably what you do. And then laterally, obviously, the work with Nick Montgomery, who came in, very successful manager, and the staff that he brought in was a completely different way of working as well. He brought in Sergio and Miguel from a more of a continental background in how they worked, but learned a completely different way of playing again. So selfishly for David Gray, it was really beneficial. For the football club, we didn't get to where we needed to be in terms of results and winning enough games to, well, obviously we would have loved all the managers to be more successful, but at the same time, on reflection, I've learnt such a lot in such a short period of time and then gained so much experience in a short period of time. But I also felt at that moment then, after Nick, it then kind of had to be now or never for me. I couldn't constantly keep stepping up as interim manager. A new manager comes in with what happens with David Gray. I've been ever present. So some people might say the problem was maybe staring you in the face that the same guy's been here the whole time. But at the same time, I'd like to think that all the managers I've worked under, as I said, my job was to support them as much as I could. And throughout that whole period I was learning, but that's why this time was different, because I genuinely applied for the job.
If you'd have turned it down, the signal that would have sent out?
It wasn't a case of turning. I was never in a position where I thought I would turn it down. I was in a position where I knew
you couldn't turn it down. It was too.
I had to apply for it. So I applied for a job like anybody else. It wasn't as if like well, just after Nick was removed and lost his job, like, you're going to be the manager. I went through a process the same as everybody else. I put myself forward. Had to go through the process, and I think then probably had to demonstrate what I believed I could bring to the table. And I think I talked a lot about the experience side to it. Yes, I'm a rookie manager in terms of I've not got 500 games, but I've got a lot of experience in the league, the club, what it means to everybody else, but also I've just touched on there, all the experiences I've gained in such a short period of time.
That moment when they came to you and said it's yours, who was it that said it to you, and can you remember the day?
I remember it really, really well, because actually I had a family holiday booked. We were going to Florida. Listen, the kids were at that age where we decided a year ago before that my youngest was going to be 6, 8 and 11. We'll take them to Disneyland before she's too old to understand that Mickey Mouse running about and all that stuff. So we were like, we'll make it, obviously, worked really hard all year, we'll make sure we go and do that this year. And I took my mum and dad, because they'd both retired, and my Mary and Tony, which is my mother-in-law, and they came over because they'd retired this year as well. So it was like a proper family trip that we had organised.
Fantastic.
But my interview was the first 3 days into the holiday, supposed to be. So I had to stay here. They went over on their own, and I joined them after. So I'd done the interview, then I'm sitting on the plane flying over there. Obviously, you don't know how it's went. Starting to think, wonder what I'm coming back to. Am I going to have a job? Am I not going to have a job? Because these are all the questions you have to ask. As soon as you put your name out there to go and apply for the job, it'd be very hard for me to stay in the role I was in previously. In fact, I knew that was going to be the case.
An 8-hour flight, is it? 8-hour flight?
That was a nightmare as well. So I flew to London, EasyJet flight to London, checked the bag, and I had my suitcase, and my wife was quite clever actually. So she says, well, you'll not have the kids, so you can just take all the clothes. So I had this suitcase that was about 50 kilos. It was supposed to be 20 kilos getting on the EasyJet flight. I get to the counter in the morning, and actually, the lady was brilliant. She just said, oh, it's a wee bit heavy, but you'll be all right. I was like, oh, brilliant. So she let me on. I was like, oh, that's amazing. I want to watch you. I got down to London, got to the next desk, flying from there over to Florida. Sorry, sir, that's too heavy. You need to buy another case. I was like, well, I've not got another case. She says, well, you need to empty it, go and buy a handle, hold or whatever. I said, well, how much is it just to put it in? It's like, oh, £80 or something. I was like, oh. So I was cursing my wife. But £80, paid that, got over there, flew over, everything was fine. Arrived at the airport, bags go round, no bag. Like, oh, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, you hear crash, bang, wallop, and there's clothes everywhere, all over the carousel, all the way round.
No.
And I was like, I recognise the pants and the socks and everything else. And that's my gear all over the things. Suitcase came out like this in half. It's too heavy, obviously, because we've put too much stuff in it. So that was a disaster.
Plenty of people around the carousel and all that, was there?
Oh, there was plenty.
Oh,
aye.
nice.
It was ideal.
That's terrific.
In fact, tell a lie. Everybody had left and it was just me and this other lady, and she was waiting on her case. So we heard the case getting loaded on, and I'm going, there's only one case there. I hope this is mine. And it came up, and I was like, oh, I hope that's not mine. So that wasn't the ideal. But then that was obviously the first, so I missed the first 2 or 3 days of the holiday, and then this was such a special holiday that I wanted to spend with the kids and what we'd saved up for to go, and we wanted to do it with the families, and I couldn't think of anything other than work, like what's going to happen here. I didn't find out for 6 days after it, and I was actually lying, because we had like a house, and I was lying by the pool, and the phone went, and it was Ian, Ben and Malky actually on like a conference call type thing, and me being me, just like to offer you a job, and I was like, thanks very much. And they were like,
way.
And they basically, I'm always just the same, very placid, and so people were, my missus actually said to me, well, come on, what happened? I was like,
I think about the weight.
And they were like, I don't know.
Was there not a cheer? Was there not a kind of...
I think you've gathered by now. I didn't smile very often, I didn't celebrate very much, I'm just miserable, to be honest. It's probably not a bad word to describe it.
Don't believe it.
No, I'd say internally I was over the moon, and then you start to then recognise, right now, I want to get back. Do you know what I mean? So I'm on holiday thinking, right, let's switch off. But my full focus was on getting back to work and getting started, and then you start to try and obviously build your team and what that looks like, and then...
That must be quite emotional when you broke the news, because
it was.
Your nearest and dearest are there.
Aye, everybody was there. So that side to it was really good.
Brilliant.
It was, like I say, on reflection now, it was a special moment, and delighted the club decided to support me and give me the opportunity, because it would have been really easy to go down a more experienced route in terms of just by numbers. Do you mean, as I said to you there, experience can be demonstrated in many different ways, but I think that was something that I was very grateful for the opportunity, purely because you know, I'd been at this club for such a long time, loved every minute of it, been many highs, many lows across the way, but knowing that if I didn't probably get the job, I'd have to leave, because
Where else you go?
where else do you go exactly? And it's not even just that. I think the minute you show an interest, like up until this point, during all my interim periods, some of them went quite well, so done quite well, and then people start to talk about could he get the job, everything else. Now, on reflection, let's just say if we go back to my very first interim period, say we won the cup, and people say, well, you need to take the job now. I was nowhere near ready to take the job at that point. Now, if they offered it, would you take it? Probably, because that's what you do, don't you? I think you just always, well, I would always constantly back myself. But during every interim period, on reflection, I'm so grateful that I was able to just keep learning. And the next manager came in and learned from them and everything that came with that, because knowing what I know now, I definitely wasn't ready. Now, at the time, I'd maybe say I was, and after the time, I'd go for it or whatever. And I always put the club first, rightly so. And I would always back myself to be successful. But knowing what I know now and what I knew in the different periods, I kind of knew this was the time, and it was either now or never. On the flip side, knowing that if it didn't go well, I'd have to move on, because you can't really put your name in the hat and then turn around and work for somebody else. I think that's not quite right.
Having already been interim 4 times, would it have felt a bit awkward after that point? You know,
well, I suppose it depends on who was going to be the new manager or how that would look, and how does David Gray fit into that. And I'm asked still because your job as a first team coach or assistant manager, whatever your role is within that, is always to support the manager and make sure that we'll get successful results. And I think, but also if you're a first team coach, you need to try and develop players and learn, make the players better every single day. But you're always trying to gain the trust of the person that comes in, because they're always inheriting David Gray. So I think there's always that was something that I was very conscious of as well this time round. So I'm sitting going, well, you know, how often can you keep being the bridesmaid effectively? So I think there was an element of that as well.